guys, it's Elby here. Today I am starting off a new series, Can We DIY It? I'm going to be taking a bunch of just kind of random things that maybe I'm curious to find out if we can DIY them. So today we are kicking it off, quite literally, with can we DIY a pair of shoes? Shoes, yes. Shoes. I know. Why? Because I had a pair of old canvas shoes and they were starting to get really ratty. There was holes in the top where the toes were. My one side was coming apart where my pinky toe was basically falling out of it. Yeah, so no longer could I wear those shoes, but I really loved the way that they fit. And I wanted to see, because they were canvas, if we could make them again. So by taking them apart, making a pattern out of them, and then applying it to my skills that I have, which aren't very many, especially not with sewing. It was an adventure. I could say that. It was an adventure. Oh man. I am definitely, though, going to try and do this again because it was a lot of fun figuring it out and very satisfying when you make a pair of shoes, because like, how satisfying is that, making a pair of shoes? Yeah, okay. So let's get into it. Hey guys, it's voiceover me coming from the future's past. So as you can see, this shoe is pretty torn up at the toe there, and there is where my toes would pop through. The soles are a little worn out where my big toe was. I started off by separating the soles from the top of the shoe. I found it was actually a lot easier just to pull them apart. And then I started taking apart each seam of the shoe. So by carefully deconstructing the shoe seam by seam, we're also learning how the shoe is put together, and that will help us be able to not only make our pattern, but then to sew our pattern and make the shoe. This part here was a little bit messy. That green stuff was coming apart and getting all over the place. Now to make the patterns for each piece, we are going to take the ones that are symmetrical and fold them in half, pin them so that they stay in place, trace each part of the shoe out onto a piece of paper, and then create a 1/2 inch seam allowance around that. Then cut them out and you have a pattern. Take a piece of fabric, fold it in half, trace out your pattern pieces, pin them, and cut them out. That's my puppy. First, we're gonna start sewing the toe of the shoe. I didn't know quite how far down the curve to start, so trial and errored it until it looked good. Then we're gonna sew up the sides of the back of the shoe. This part was a little bit of an afterthought. I didn't want to just have another pair of plain canvas shoes. I wanted to spruce things up a little, you know? So I thought this nice floral print that I have a lot of scrap of would be perfect for this. Fun fact about this floral print is that it is just a tablecloth from the dollar store. In fact, besides the sewing machine and the eyelets, you could get all the materials for this at the dollar store. Now to construct the back, we're going to take one piece of the inside and the outside, so a 1/2 inch seam allowance of the long side, keeping the short side open. Cut slits or notches around the curve to help ensure that when you flip it inside out, it will lay flat. Now normally I would iron this first before flipping it right side out, and then again before I sew it, but I wasn't at my house, so I didn't have my ironing stuff with me, so I had to go straight into doing the top stitch. Once you get to the middle where the seam is, which, like, why did I even make it that way that there's a seam? Anyway, make sure that you have it all facing the same way so that there's no bumps or lumps. Yay, back at my house now. I'm gonna iron this on a very low setting, both sides, so making sure that all of my seams are nice and pressed and that, again, there is no lumps or bumps. Now this is how we properly get to do it. So iron both sides, flip it inside out or right side out, and then iron your seams down, making them nice and crisp. That way the fabric's not going to be rolling around on you and you don't have to stop a bazillion times and try and fix it. It also makes for a cleaner line. Then I traced out the rest of my pattern pieces onto the floral and cut them out. If you like this video, please give it a like. Let's see if we can make it to 200 likes. That would be awesome. If you love learning new things, please subscribe down below and make sure you click that bell for notifications, because pretty soon I will be coming at you with 2 videos a week. So look out for that. Now I am constructing the tail part of the shoe. I actually have no idea what this part of the shoe is called. If you know, can you please comment down below and let me know what it is, because I am very curious. So to flip them inside out, all I am doing is using a pen to kind of shove up that narrow part and flip her all the way right side out. Then I'm ironing it to, once again, make a very nice crisp seam. So here I'm just top stitching the seam down on the toe of the canvas part, so that's the inside that's going to be actually touching my foot. I don't want to feel the seam. Now for the top of the shoe. Placing both good sides together, start about 1.5 inches up from the toe of the shoe, and you're going to sew all the way up and along it until you come back down to the toe of the shoe again, and you're going to leave another 1.5 inches at the bottom so that you have room to flip it right side out. Then I cut along the seams to remove excess bulk, ironed it on a low setting, and flipped it inside out with the aid of a pencil to help me get those corners out. Then I ironed it again, and guys, ironing can make it look just so much more put together, so much more professional looking. Get those nice crisp lines, and it's just so nice. I did a top stitch on this one as well, and so much easier since I ironed it first. Now I'm making the little hook on the tail. We're just gonna call it a tail now. Then I am going to mark out where my eyelets are gonna go for my laces. My eyelets came with this little hole punch thing, and the first one went into my mat, so then I put a little piece of wood behind it to kind of protect my mat, and it kept getting into the wood, so I'd have to like clean it out all the time, and it was really annoying. Then I figured out how to use this tool and put the eyelets on somewhat properly, I hope. Once I got one side of the eyelets done, I would fold my piece in half and then mark out where the first eyelets were onto the second half so that they somewhat look alike. Then I attached the tongue to the side pieces and sewed that on, just kind of going over top of the stitches that were already there. Now I am figuring out how to put the side piece onto the top of the foot piece, and it was a little bit trial and error. I ended up pinning it, and then I actually tried it on, just slipped it over my foot to see how it would kind of sit and lay, and then I didn't like that, so I took it off, and then I tried again, and finally I found how I wanted it to somewhat feel. Now for the bottoms, what I did was I took the old bottoms and I flipped them and traced them out onto a piece of cardstock so it's nice and sturdy. And then I glued those two pieces together, making sure that I marked my left and my right side. Then I traced 4 of the large full sizes onto a piece of foam, make sure I marked out what side they were, my left or my right. Then what you're going to have to do for the rest of the pieces is cut off a little bit, trace around that, once on the left, once on the right, then cut off another little piece, trace around that, once on the left, once on the right, cut off another little piece, again, trace around that. Then for the last piece, you're going to want to make it about 3 to 4 inches so that it just comes past your heel. We're going to cut those out, and then we are going to glue them with contact cement, keeping one full-sized one for the bottom that only has glue on one side, one full-sized one for the top that only has glue on one side, and then all the other ones are going to get glue on both sides. In order to do that, you have to glue them up, let them dry, flip them over, glue them up, let them dry, and then once they're dry, you can construct it all. Yay, we are coming to the final construction. Okay, so to finish it up, you are gonna cut out this little thing so there's less bulk. Then I attached the 2 pieces of the tongue to the top of the shoe. Then I tried it on and I kind of figured out where everything would sit. I glued that down just using hot glue and did the back, and then went up and finished the rest of the sides. Once I had the shoe securely glued on, then I added more glue and brought the fabric to the very edge of the foam. Once that was done, I went in with my little X-Acto knife and scored some lines through the bottom of the shoe, just going in a tiny bit, not to actually puncture all the way through. Then I added the elastic instead of laces because I hate laces with a passion. Now I just hot glued the elastic together instead of stitching it because it's not really going to be getting stretched all that much, but if you were to be stretching it a lot more, I would definitely recommend sewing it. Just a quick hand stitch. Okay, now for the very, very last step, we are going in with some jute cord. I like jute cord. I don't know if you guys have noticed from my previous videos. So we're going in with the jute cord, and I am wrapping it around twice all the way around, and then one more time to make 3 lines at the back of the shoe. So use your discretion on figuring out where to stop and where to end. Kind of do like a trial run, a dry trial run before you start gluing things. I found that when you cut the cord, if you cut it kind of on an angle, then it sits a lot flatter and it's less bulky and a little more inconspicuous when you glue up all of the ends. Oh my gosh, guys. I just made a pair of shoes. Like, how freaking cool is that? If you like this video, please give it a like, and if you want to see more videos just like this one, then hit that subscribe button and the bell right beside it so you get notified when I post them. Thanks, guys.